Hi guys, and welcome to a Hector lecture guide to how to do E8S Shiva Unsynced. This guide is going to assume that you've got a full party of 8 players, all at level 90. Crucial for this to be as simple as possible, you want your entire group to be about eye level 580 plus for this to work. This is to avoid one mechanic, Lights Rampant. Even if you've not done this fight, you've probably heard about it for what a pain it can be. This guide here will actually show you how you can skip that and really not have much in the way of difficult mechanics to go through. So let's break this down. The fight starts with Absolute Zero, which is a raid wide, but will barely tickle the party, so don't worry about that too much. You're then going to get 2 green mirrors and a red mirror that are going to appear. Find where the 2 green mirrors are, because your safe spot for this upcoming mechanic is always either going to be between them or opposite them. So the boss is then going to cast either Driving Frost or Biting Frost. I remember with Drive Forward, Bite Back. For this, Driving Frost means that you want to go in front of the boss, and that means we're going towards the green mirrors. The boss first cleaves behind the boss themselves. Then you are safe in between the green mirrors, and as soon as that explodes, just wiggle over to the other side between the green and the red mirror to dodge this. If you get the other version of this, Bite Back, when you see Biting Frost, first make sure you are behind the boss, but we're going to wiggle towards opposite the green mirrors, because each of them explodes. And then we get the red mirror exploding afterwards that we're dodging away from. And that's it. That's that mechanic. Diamond Frost is next up, and this is probably the biggest mechanic in Phase 1. When Diamond Frost finishes casting, it does a decent amount of raid-wide damage. And we're going to get 4 players targeted with red AoE circles. We need to drop them on the waymarks as shown, just sort of at corners, intercardinals, not too far out. So we have a set position for the tank, a set position for the healer, and the DPS just kind of need to free-for-all to split up to make sure they don't go to the same one. So those red circles appear, and very importantly, 2 other things happen. 1, a tank and a healer are going to get a debuff that will freeze them if not Asuna'd. So you're just going to have, if you have the debuff, that healer can Asuna themselves. If they don't have the debuff, you can Asuna the tank instead. Alternatively, one person can absolutely Asuna both of them. There's plenty of time. The second thing to watch for is that icicle circles appear either north-south or east-west. Wherever the first circles appear, that's the safe spots later. So this is a north-south pattern that we're seeing here. So everybody goes to their respective red, their corners, their markers to be able to drop the red AoEs. Everyone else just hides middle. Now, as soon as these explode and go off, they drop little starburst AoEs there, and those players need to reposition themselves ready for a knockback. Heavenly Strike is the knockback. You want to get knocked back towards the safe spots, but crucial, your tank needs to go in a different direction from your healers. So have your tank always go to north or west, your healers always go to south or east. DPS, it doesn't matter. This is because a random tank and a random healer is going to get the flare marker, and so we ride this knockback to spread those apart. As long as you've gone to the safe spot and you are standing behind there's a big line there, as long as you're behind that line, you will dodge everything. As this is happening, just at the very end, 2 DPS are going to have little puddle AoEs. Just kite those away from the group. Slowly move away, drop your puddles away, and after 3, you're good to go. Now, very important, your tank has a really crucial job right here. Think back, did you have driving or did you have biting first? Whichever you had, you're about to have the opposite. If you had driving first, you need to run back through towards the edge again. If you have biting first, you're going to stay mid. This is so that, in this case, if you had driving first, now you're going to get biting. The boss is positioned in such a way that everybody will naturally dodge the attack by being middle. If your tank struggles with this, that's fine. Just be aware, drive forward, bite back. That tells you which side of the boss you need to be on, respectively. So biting means we want to be behind the boss. Afterwards, we get Double Slap. This can be taken with quite a few cooldowns, but be aware it gives a physical vuln up. It used to be this required a tank swap, but as long as you either invuln late or use a lot of cooldowns and your healers are watching your health, there's only 2 autos before this falls off, and you can easily survive it now. So just either invuln this very late or pop a lot of cooldowns and healers watch your tank's health. Last thing we get is the boss transforms, so this is a look away. Just before the flash goes off, look away. And then dodge what is either going to be an in or an out. Axe Kick is an out. Everybody get away from the boss. Scythe Kick is an in. That's a donut. Be aware, as you can see, for ranged and healers, you can stay at your max range, and you can dodge this without having to look at the cast. at max range, you auto-dodge both Axe and Scythe. So, fingers crossed that the boss is below 50% before it starts a cast of Light's Rampant. If you have the boss below 50%, the phase ends and you go straight to add phase. The boss disappears and becomes untargetable. If not, you can try to squeeze your way through Light's Rampant, but you'll need to watch a separate guide for that because I'm not going to cover that right now. For add phase, there's 2 circles at the beginning. Just make sure you have 4 players and 1 healer in each of these groups as you transition into add phase. Add phase has gotten considerably easier. You get lots of adds and you get tethers spawning. The tethers need to be taken 1 player each round. So normally you'd go something like healer, melee, tank, ranged. But since you're doing a 1 tank column, just decide in advance who in each group's going to take first, who takes second, who takes third, who takes fourth. Healers, watch out. The damage is percentage based, meaning that every wave of adds, every player is going to take about half their health bar in damage. So the healing check is still pretty steep. There's still quite a lot of healing to do. There's just not really any damage that's required anymore because the adds die almost instantly. So be aware, don't ever walk through middle. You pick up a tether and there's a light AoE around whoever ticks the tether. Kill the adds. Have the next player take the tether. Kill the adds. Heal up. Third tether appears. Make sure the third player takes the tether. And we'll make sure the fourth player takes the tether. And as long as every tether's taken and every ad's killed, you get a little DPS buff, but you also pass the phase. Be aware, I know that the animations here are a little fault with that. They show players going through the middle. That will give you a bleed that will likely kill you, so don't do that. When you've survived the 4 phases of add, you've treated to about a 1-minute long cutscene, and we shall never be parted again, and then everybody's back. Now, really crucial. We're about to take light party stacks, but these light party stacks are targeted at the first and second in aggro. And since we don't have 2 tanks, this isn't as easy as just having both switch on tank stance. Simple solution. In addition to making sure you have your higher DPS players in the group that doesn't have a tank, just have your tank shirk the top DPS. That's going to give a big chunk of their aggro to a certain DPS player in the other group, and that means that you should have a pretty sizable lead for second place, and aggro won't swap. As long as aggro doesn't swap, Akh Morn hits each group 3 times for light damage. And to finish off, everybody should stack together for Morn of Fa. If your tank saved their invuln from the first phase, they could go away from the party and use it now as this target's main tank, but it just doesn't do that much damage, so feel free to take it as a group stack. Mirror Mirror will spawn a blue, a green, and a red mirror. Look over in the west. If the mirror is blue, you're going to dodge clockwise. If it's red, counterclockwise. The boss is then going to face either north or south, have a glowing wing, which will face one side or the other. The way I remember this, if it points at red, go on her head. So in this case, because the wing that's glowing is pointing towards red, the safe spot is not going to be on the glowing side. That's about to get cleaved, but instead of A or D, it's D. You go on the head. And remember that we said that because it was blue over in the west, it's going to be a clockwise dodge. So the group dodges here. They then go to A, and then to B. These don't do incredible damage. You can just soak them and take damage downs if you're struggling to be able to dodge this, but it's not too bad. And if a single player knows it, put a Dorito on their head and have everybody follow them. Final mechanic that you might see is Wyrm's Lament. And if your group's been fine with the first mechanic of phase 2 and you were at 50% when you started this phase, there's a decent chance that you can completely ignore it and just attack the boss. If you happen to notice that your DPS is a little bit low, you've got about 15 to 20% left, you might not be able to kill it before people die to this. So just be aware, how this works is that a dragon's head spawns. 4 players have red debuffs. They look at their timer, and they use that timer to decide when they're going to hit the head. So just 14, sorry to re-show that timer. The red debuffs are 14, 22, 30, 38. The blue debuffs are 20, 28, 36, 44. The red debuff player, you just look at your timer, see if you're first, second, third, or fourth, and that determines when you hit the head. So here, the short red debuff timer goes out immediately. Always go in front of the head to make sure you clip it. And if you want, your DPS can focus on going to soak their puddles, or if not, just DPS down. Eventually, if they don't soak a puddle, they will die from not cleansing their debuff. So if you want to do this as simple as possible, and if you've got the DPS, just focus on the left-right cleaves. The boss is constantly cleaving either left or right. Stay middle, DPS the boss down, and dodge. If you want to do it proper, make sure that you're constantly going to the head in order first, second, third, fourth if you have a red debuff, and blue debuffs instead are going to the puddle left behind when you walk into a head. But again, very likely that you will not have to do this properly as long as your DPS is high enough. And that's it. If you do manage to get here and the boss still has some health left, just stand still, don't move. The next thing the boss does is turn the arena to ice, and you've got a decent amount of time to just wail on the boss, so you should have more than enough chance to kill. And that's it. That's everything you have to do nowadays when unsyncing E8S Shiva. Thanks for watching. Hope you found this useful. Take care.